In the bustling city of Verona, where skyscrapers scraped the clouds and sirens echoed through the streets, lived a man named Giovanni Russo. Giovanni was not just any businessman. He was a powerful mafia boss, feared and respected by many. With slicked-back hair, sharp suits, and an air of authority, he commanded attention wherever he went. His piercing gaze could silence a room, and his reputation whispered tales of loyalty and betrayal. Each day, Giovanni followed a strict routine. He would start his mornings with a strong cup of espresso, allowing the rich aroma to awaken his senses as he gazed out from his penthouse window. Below him, life bustled on the streets. Vendors shouting prices, children rushing to school, and cars weaving through traffic. This was his kingdom, and he ruled it with a careful hand. After breakfast, Giovanni would meet with his trusted associates in a dimly lit back room of a local cafe. Here, deals were made and plans were set in motion. He was shrewd, but fair among those who worked for him, ensuring that loyalty was rewarded. Yet beneath this tough exterior was a man who understood the importance of family. His own was just as important to him as his empire. To maintain his lavish lifestyle, Giovanni employed several staff members to help run his household. Among them was Maria, a kind-hearted maid who had been with him for years. Maria was dedicated not just to her work, but also to her daughter, Sofia. The boss often saw Maria bustling about his home, cleaning and organizing with a smile that masked her struggles. She was a single mother, working long hours to provide for Sofia. But despite her hard work, Giovanni noticed something unusual. As weeks turned into months, Giovanni began to observe that Sofia rarely joined them for lunch. While others enjoyed lavish meals at the dining table, a spread of gourmet dishes prepared by the finest chefs, Sofia remained absent from these gatherings. At first, Giovanni thought little of it. Perhaps she simply preferred to keep to herself or found the atmosphere overwhelming. However, as time passed and he continued to notice Sofia's absence, his curiosity grew. One afternoon, while flipping through paperwork in his office, he glanced out the window and spotted Maria walking home with Sofia after work. It was an unusually warm day, and the sun cast a golden hue over the neighborhood. Giovanni observed them from afar, Maria carrying their few groceries while Sofia walked quietly beside her. The contrast between their cheerful surroundings and the weight they seemed to carry struck him deeply. Giovanni's mind raced with thoughts. Why didn't Sofia ever join them? Did they not have enough food at home? A sense of responsibility stirred within him. He had always been protective of those under his care. After all, they were like a family in their own way. Determined to find answers, Giovanni decided that he needed to learn more about their situation. He wanted to understand why this bright young girl did not partake in the simple joy of lunch at his table. After all, no child should have to worry about where their next meal would come from. With each passing day, Giovanni's concern deepened into something more than mere curiosity. It became a mission, a quest that would ultimately change his life and theirs in ways he could never have anticipated. Little did he know that this simple observation would lead him down a path filled with compassion, understanding, and unexpected connections that transcended the world of crime he had always known. As Giovanni prepared to uncover the truth about Maria and Sofia's lives, he felt a stirring inside him, a feeling that perhaps there was more to life than power and control. There was a deeper purpose waiting just beyond his gaze. Maria was a fixture in Giovanni Russo's household, a diligent maid whose presence brought a sense of warmth to the otherwise grand and cold environment of his lavish home. With her hair pulled back into a neat bun and a smile that lit up her tired eyes, she moved gracefully through the rooms, dusting surfaces and arranging flowers with care. Each morning, she arrived before the sun rose, donning her simple uniform as she prepared for another long day of work. Her dedication was evident in every task she completed. Maria took pride in ensuring that everything was spotless and perfectly organized, from the polished marble floors to the crisp linens on the dining table. She often hummed softly to herself while she worked, finding small moments of joy in her routine despite the weight of reality hanging over her. At home, however, life was not as carefree. Maria lived in a modest apartment on the outskirts of Verona with her daughter Sofia, a quiet girl of 10 who preferred the company of books to that of people. Their apartment was small, but filled with love. It had peeling paint on the walls and furniture that had seen better days, yet it was a sanctuary where they shared laughter and dreams. Maria worked tirelessly to provide for Sofia, juggling multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Sofia was shy and reserved, often seen with her nose buried deep in a storybook or drawing pictures at the small kitchen table. Maria encouraged her creativity and often asked about her day at school, but Sofia would only offer half-hearted responses. It wasn't that she didn't enjoy school. Rather, she struggled to connect with other kids. While they talked about their favorite toys or lunch items, Sofia found it hard to relate since she often skipped lunch at school due to financial constraints. Giovanni's attention had been drawn to this peculiar absence during lunchtime at his estate. While he enjoyed gourmet meals every day surrounded by his associates or family members, he couldn't help but notice that Sofia never joined them. He would occasionally catch glimpses of her through the kitchen window as she played outside after school, but even then, she never seemed eager to engage with anyone else. Maria often returned home late in the evening after long hours spent cleaning and organizing Giovanni's vast mansion. When she arrived home, Sofia would be waiting for her with wide eyes and eager questions about her day. They would share whatever little food they could afford, a simple meal that usually consisted of rice or pasta, while talking about their hopes for the future. Despite their meager existence, Maria instilled resilience in Sofia. "We may not have much," Maria would say with a warm smile, "but we have each other." However, there were days when Maria felt overwhelmed by worry. She often wondered if they would ever have enough food or money for Sofia's school supplies. As Giovanni observed this family dynamic from afar, he became curious about their relationship and lifestyle. He started to picture their small apartment, the cluttered space filled with drawings on the walls and books stacked high on every surface. He imagined the love that filled those four walls despite their struggles. Determined to learn more about Maria's life with Sofia and why they faced such hardships, Giovanni felt an unfamiliar stirring within him, a mix of concern and empathy that began to shape his thoughts. As much as he was known for his power in Verona's criminal underworld, he realized there were deeper connections worth exploring beyond his empire. Little did he know that understanding Maria and Sofia's world would not only change how he viewed them, but also transform his own life in ways he could never foresee. With each passing day, Giovanni found himself increasingly drawn into their story, one that held lessons about compassion and resilience amidst adversity. As days turned into weeks, Giovanni Russo couldn't shake the nagging curiosity about Sofia, Maria's daughter. He had always been a man driven by power, control, and the ability to manipulate situations to his advantage. Yet here he was, drawn into the simple yet profound mystery of a child's absence during lunch. He had an empire built on loyalty and respect, but the absence of a small girl at his grand table stirred something far deeper in him. Every day, as he gathered with his associates in the lavish dining room, Giovanni noticed the sumptuous meals laid out before him. Roasted meats, vibrant salads, and decadent desserts. They were moments filled with laughter and storytelling among men who had built their lives around power and influence. Yet Sofia was never part of these gatherings. He would often glance toward the large kitchen window, hoping to catch a glimpse of her playing outside or perhaps joining them for just a moment. But she remained elusive. One afternoon, while indulging in a particularly extravagant lunch of osso buco and polenta, Giovanni found his mind wandering instead of focusing on business discussions. A voice interrupted his thoughts. His closest associate, Marco, was detailing plans for an upcoming deal. But all Giovanni could think about was why Sofia never appeared at the dining table. "Where is the girl?" he thought to himself. "What keeps her away?" His curiosity grew each time he heard laughter echoing from the dining room, while pictures of Sofia's solitary playtime filled his mind. As he observed Maria bustling around serving food and cleaning up after meals, she seemed to carry an additional weight on her shoulders, one that Giovanni began to recognize as worry. He sensed that there was more to their story than met the eye. The more time that passed without any sign of Sofia during lunch, the more determined Giovanni became to uncover the truth behind her absence. He wondered if it was simply a matter of choice, or if something more troubling lay beneath the surface. Was it a family issue? Did they lack adequate food? Or was she just shy? Questions swirled in his mind like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind. One evening, as he wrapped up meetings in his office, he caught sight of Sofia through the window again. She stood alone by the swings in a nearby park, while other children laughed and played, her head down as she absent-mindedly kicked a pebble. The sight tugged at Giovanni's heartstrings in a way that he had not anticipated. Driven by a newfound sense of responsibility, Giovanni decided he needed to talk to Maria directly about her daughter. He wanted answers, to understand why this little girl never shared in the joy of lunchtime at his table. The realization hit him hard. He had spent so much time focusing on his empire that he had overlooked the very human stories happening right under his nose. That night, he summoned Maria to his office after hours. The opulence of the room contrasted sharply with her simple uniform and downcast eyes as she entered hesitantly. "Maria," he began, trying to keep his tone gentle despite his commanding presence. "I've noticed that your daughter doesn't eat with us during lunch. Is everything all right?" Maria's eyes widened in surprise at being addressed so directly by her boss. She hesitated for a moment, before responding softly. She prefers to stay home." The sadness in her voice echoed through the luxurious room. Giovanni leaned back in his chair, feeling an unusual pang of empathy for both Maria and Sofia. This wasn't just about food anymore. It was about connection and understanding. A stark contrast to everything else he dealt with daily in his world of crime and power. Determined to learn more about what lay beneath the surface of their lives, and driven by an emerging sense of compassion, Giovanni decided he would dig deeper into their story. Little did he know that this decision would lead him down a path filled with unexpected lessons about love, sacrifice, and community that would challenge everything he believed about himself and the world around him. One crisp autumn afternoon, Giovanni sat in his office meticulously, reviewing contracts and financial reports. The scent of freshly brewed espresso filled the air, and golden sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting a warm glow on the elegantly furnished space. Yet, despite the comforting environment, his mind was restless, fixated on thoughts of Sofia. As he leaned back in his leather chair, he recalled her solitary figure standing by the swings, her eyes downcast while laughter echoed around her. Giovanni's heart ached at the image, as if it had etched itself into his memory. He didn't understand why this small girl had such an impact on him. It felt as if she were a reflection of something lost within himself. Feeling an urge to clear his mind, Giovanni decided to take a walk outside. He stepped away from the confines of his office and made his way towards the park near his home. As he strolled through the bustling streets of Verona, with its colorful cafes and busy shops, the vibrant world around him seemed to fade into a blur. His thoughts were consumed by Sofia's absence and Maria's struggles, and he couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to their story than he had gathered so far. Upon reaching the park entrance, he noticed a familiar figure perched on a swing, Sofia. She was alone again, her small frame swaying gently back and forth. He paused at the edge of the path to get a better look, hoping that today might be different. Perhaps she would engage with other children or join in their games. But again, she remained isolated, quietly watching other kids laugh and chase each other with joy. Giovanni's sense of concern deepened as he observed her demeanor. Determined not to let this moment pass him by, he quietly approached to see if she would react differently to his presence. He called out softly, "Hey there," hoping to catch her attention. But Sofia remained focused on the ground beneath her feet, appearing lost in thought. Realizing that merely calling out wouldn't help, Giovanni decided to take a bold step. Instead of approaching her right away, he walked inconspicuously over to a nearby bench and sat down, pretending to read a newspaper while keeping an eye on her. He wanted to give her space while still showing that someone cared. Minutes turned into what felt like hours as he observed her. Occasionally, other children would run close to her, giggling and playing tag. Each time they brushed by, Sofia would offer them a small, shy smile, but never make an effort to join in, a painful reminder of her loneliness. After a while, Giovanni noticed that Sofia glanced around nervously before finally sliding off the swing. She began making her way toward an alleyway that led away from the park. As she walked away with her hands tucked into her pockets and her head downcast, Giovanni felt that familiar stirring of concern swell inside him once more. Deciding it was now or never, he stood up and followed her at a distance. He aimed to ensure his presence was discreet. After all, he didn't want to intimidate or scare her further. As they navigated through familiar streets lined with charming shops and vibrantly colored buildings, Sofia turned onto a less crowded path leading toward an area with smaller houses. Giovanni quickened his pace, but remained cautious not to alert her. His heart raced as he contemplated what might lie ahead, the potential realities that awaited him behind those front doors. They stopped in front of a modest apartment building with chipped paint and slightly unkempt steps. Home for Maria and Sofia. As Sofia entered the building and disappeared from view, Giovanni stopped at a distance, taking a deep breath before gathering his thoughts. This wasn't just about observing anymore. This was about understanding their lives firsthand. The struggles Maria faced every day to protect and provide for her daughter. He realized this chance encounter could be pivotal in forging the connection he yearned for between them. It was now clear to him. Genuine compassion would allow him to unravel their story further, one that extended far beyond power dynamics, and perhaps reveal truths that could change all of their lives forever. Standing outside the modest apartment building, Giovanni took a moment to collect his thoughts. The chipped paint on the walls and the slightly unkempt steps told a story of wear and hardship. As he stepped inside the dimly lit hallway, A faint smell of something familiar mixed with the scent of dust filled the air, creating an atmosphere that felt both heavy and intimate. He cautiously climbed the narrow staircase, each step creaking underfoot, revealing how often these stairs had been traversed. With every step, his heart raced with anticipation and concern for what awaited him. He reached the second floor and approached apartment 2B. There, he could hear the soft murmur of voices mixed with faint laughter. Sophia and Maria were home. Taking a deep breath, Giovanni gently knocked on the door before stepping back to give them space. After a moment, it swung open to reveal Maria, her eyes widening in surprise upon seeing her employer standing before her. She instinctively smoothed down her apron, her expression shifting from shock to apprehension as she realized he had come to visit. "Giovanni, is everything all right?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. "I just wanted to check in," he replied carefully. "May I come in?" With a hesitant nod, Maria stepped aside to allow him entry. As Giovanni crossed the threshold, he was immediately struck by the stark contrast between his opulent mansion and this small living space. The living room was simple but tidy. A worn sofa occupied one corner, while a small table cluttered with books and art supplies filled another. Yet something about it felt inviting. It radiated warmth despite its modesty. As he entered further into their world, he noticed that there were no family photos hanging on the walls or decorations beyond a few crayon drawings taped up high, a testament to Sophia's creativity, but also an indication of their financial limitations. A small kitchenette sat off to one side, revealing its bare shelves and empty countertop. Giovanni's heart sank as he glanced around. There was little food present aside from a few cans and maybe half a loaf of bread. He could see Maria moving about busily in the kitchen area, as if trying to distract herself from any lingering worries. She opened one of the cabinets only to reveal more emptiness. Its interior was practically bare, except for a few mismatched plates and utensils stacked haphazardly. "Can I get you something to drink?" Maria offered hesitantly. Giovanni shook his head, his gaze lingering on Sophia, who was quietly drawing at the table, unaware of Giovanni's presence for now. The little girl focused intently on her artwork, but seemed thin and frail, her clothes slightly oversized and worn out at the edges, telling stories of wear and tear over time. "Well," Giovanni said slowly, breaking the silence as he turned his attention back to Maria. "I wanted to understand why Sophia doesn't join us for lunch. I can see that things are tough." Maria's eyes filled with emotion as she glanced at Sophia before looking back at Giovanni. We do our best," she admitted softly, as she wiped her hands on her apron nervously. "I work long hours, but still struggle to put food on the table more days than I care to admit." Giovanni felt a lump form in his throat as he processed her words and what was visible around him. This wasn't just about missing lunches. It was about survival. He realized how many times he had taken abundance for granted, while being blind to those who lived in scarcity. As Maria continued speaking about balancing work and care for Sophia while trying to keep their living situation stable, Giovanni's heart swelled with compassion for them both. This wasn't merely about being a boss or an employer anymore. It was about community, about humanity. He looked around at their modest surroundings. The lack of food seemed like an insult against their resilience. Every aspect of their lives seemed woven together by struggle, yet held together by love. A powerful force that must not be overlooked or ignored. In that moment, Giovanni knew he couldn't walk away from this apartment without doing something meaningful for them, perhaps even transforming their lives for the better. Little did he know that this visit would mark a turning point, not just in understanding Maria and Sophia, but also in reshaping his own purpose beyond power and wealth. After taking in the stark reality of Maria and Sophia's living situation, Giovanni felt a heavy weight settle within him. As he watched Maria move about the small apartment, he understood that her life was shaped by both love and struggle. It was time for a genuine conversation, one that would lay bare the realities they faced every day. "Maria," he began softly, placing his hands on the table to steady himself. "I want to talk about Sophia." He met her gaze, which flickered with both apprehension and a hint of hope. Maria paused in her movements, wiping her hands on her apron as she turned to face him fully. "What do you want to know?" Her voice held a mix of curiosity and caution. Giovanni leaned forward slightly, choosing his words carefully. "I've noticed she doesn't join us for lunch, and I can see how hard you work. You're always doing so much for the house, but it seems like you're carrying an even heavier load at home." A flicker of emotion crossed Maria's face, perhaps relief at being seen or understood. She took a deep breath, her eyes shimmering with unspoken words. "It's true," she admitted quietly. "Sophia is shy. She feels more comfortable at home, and as a single mother, things are not easy." Giovanni observed how every word seemed to be weighed down by an emotional toll. He could see in her expression that there were stories buried beneath the surface, stories of heartache and perseverance. "What do you mean by not easy?" he asked gently. Maria glanced at Sophia, who was now engrossed in her drawings on the table, oblivious to their conversation. "I try my best to provide for her, but my hours are long. I often have to choose between working more or spending time with Sophia," she explained, her voice growing softer as if sharing a secret. "And with bills piling up, sometimes we just don't have enough food." Giovanni felt a tightening in his chest as he processed her words. Here was a woman who devoted herself entirely to caring for her daughter, while battling obstacles most people couldn't even begin to imagine. "What about school? Does she enjoy it?" he asked. "She loves school," Maria replied quickly, warmth returning to her tone. "She has such a vivid imagination. But because I work long hours, often she skips lunch there too. I can't afford to pack it for her." The admission struck Giovanni like a bolt of lightning. How had he not realized this before? The girl's absence at the lunch table wasn't just a choice. It was part of deeper struggles rooted in scarcity and hardship. It dawned on him that this family didn't simply need food. They needed support and understanding. "Maria," Giovanni said slowly, his heart swelling with compassion, "you shouldn't have to carry this burden alone." He paused for a moment, collecting his thoughts before continuing. "There is always more we can do as a community, as I see it now. I want to help you." Maria looked taken aback by his words. Surprise danced across her features as disbelief settled in. You want to help us?" "Yes," Giovanni assured her earnestly, leaning closer so she could sense the sincerity behind his words. "I mean it. If there's anything I can do, from providing groceries to supporting Sophia's education, I want to offer my help." Tears welled in Maria's eyes as she processed this revelation. It felt as though a glimmer of hope had ignited within her heart. "Thank you," she whispered softly, emotion thickening her voice. Giovanni felt the air change between them, a bond forming through shared understanding and compassion for their respective lives. In this moment of vulnerability and connection, he realized that helping them was not just an act of charity, it was an act of humanity. As they conversed further about what assistance could look like, whether through food support or resources for Sophia's schooling, Giovanni felt lighter than he had in years. He saw clearly now that stepping beyond his role as an employer into something deeper would create ripples of change, not only in their lives, but also within him. The evening wore on with promises exchanged and plans unfolding. A new chapter beginning where kindness replaced despair. And Giovanni knew that this conversation would forever alter the trajectory of all their lives for the better. As the evening wore on, Giovanni and Maria settled into a deeper conversation about the challenges they faced. The warm light in the small apartment created an inviting atmosphere, yet the weight of their discussion hung heavily in the air. Giovanni leaned back in his chair, sensing the depth of Maria's struggles as she began to share more about their lives. "Maria," he said gently, "I want to understand what it's really like for you and Sophia. What challenges do you face day to day?" Maria took a deep breath, preparing herself to divulge the complexities of her situation. "It's hard to put into words," she began slowly. "Every day feels like a balancing act. I work long hours cleaning in different houses to keep food on the table, but it's never enough." Giovanni nodded, encouraging her to continue. He could see the toll that fatigue and worry had taken on her, yet in her voice was a resilience that captivated him. "I often have to leave Sophia at home alone after school until I return," she explained. "I know it can be unsafe, but I don't have any other choices. I can't afford childcare." Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke, and Giovanni felt a pang of empathy as he recognized how difficult it must be for a young girl to shoulder such loneliness. "And then," she continued, her eyes glistening, "there are days when we don't have enough food. I worry every time I serve her dinner. Will there be enough left for tomorrow? I'm constantly calculating what I can afford." Giovanni's heart sank at the realization that something so basic, having enough food, was a daily struggle for them. He remembered his own upbringing, filled with abundance and comfort, which stood in stark contrast to Maria's experiences. "That's not how it should be," he said quietly, shaken by her words. Maria looked down at her hands, which were calloused from years of hard work. "And it's not just about food. There are things Sophia needs for school that I can't always provide, like supplies or even just lunch money for when she does go," she added, a hint of desperation in her voice. "It's hard to see other parents at school events, and I wish I could be more involved, but I'm always so exhausted from working." The emotional weight of her honesty struck Giovanni deeply. He began to understand that Maria's struggles were not merely financial. They were tied to a system that seemed stacked against them, a community where struggling families like theirs were often overlooked. He felt a growing urgency to do something meaningful that could help disrupt this cycle. "Have you been able to reach out for support?" Giovanni asked carefully. "Are there any programs or community services available?" Maria shook her head slowly. "I try not to burden anyone else with our problems," she replied softly. "Sometimes it feels like asking for help is an admission of failure." Giovanni leaned forward, sincerity coloring his tone. "You're not failing by asking for help. You're fighting to make a better life for Sophia. There's strength in reaching out." He paused briefly before adding, "Let me help you find the resources you need." A flicker of hope appeared in Maria's eyes as she absorbed his words. For the first time, she dared to consider that there might be assistance available that wouldn't strip away her dignity, but instead would uplift them both. "I appreciate your kindness, Giovanni," she said gently, her voice shaking slightly with emotion. "It's just been so long since I felt like anyone truly cared." The realization dawned on Giovanni that helping Maria and Sofia was not just about providing material support, but also about fostering a sense of belonging and community they desperately needed. He began brainstorming ways to connect them with local resources and programs designed to assist struggling families. As they talked late into the evening, Maria shared more stories about Sofia, her bright imagination and love of art, bringing smiles even amidst hardships. Giovanni found himself inspired by Sofia's spirit and resilience, understanding now that by lifting them up, he could create a ripple effect in their lives. This was about more than charity. This was about building a bridge to a future where Maria and Sofia thrived rather than merely survived, a journey toward empowerment and transformation that both Giovanni and Maria would embark upon together. With each passing moment, he felt more determined than ever to make a difference, not just for them, but also for himself, recognizing how interconnected their lives had become through this profound understanding of struggle and hope. As the evening light faded outside Maria's apartment, Giovanni felt a profound shift within himself. The stories of struggle and resilience that Maria had shared echoed in his mind, resonating deeply with him. He had always been a man of power and control, but now he was beginning to see the world from a different perspective, one where his influence could be used for something far greater than mere authority. Sitting at the small table, he observed Maria as she tended to Sofia, who was still lost in her drawings. The love and dedication in Maria's interactions with her daughter painted a picture of sacrifice and strength that was both beautiful and heartbreaking. Giovanni realized that there was more to being an employer than simply providing a paycheck. There was an opportunity to be a source of support and change in their lives. Giovanni's mind raced with thoughts of how he could help. His usual instincts focused on maintaining control over his empire seemed insignificant compared to the struggles faced by Maria and Sofia. It dawned on him that every moment spent solely on power had kept him blind to the realities of others, the very real pain that existed right under his watch. He had always commanded respect through fear and loyalty, but what if he could inspire that respect through kindness instead? The thought took root in his heart, growing stronger with each passing second. Giovanni knew he wanted to become more than just a boss. He longed to be part of a solution rather than an observer of suffering. Maria, he began carefully, what if we looked for some community programs together? Resources for families like yours? The words came out almost hesitantly, yet conviction filled his voice. There must be ways we can find assistance for you and Sofia, help with food or school supplies. Maria looked up from her task. Surprise etched across her features. You would really do that for us? She asked, disbelief mingling with hope in her voice. Absolutely, Giovanni replied firmly. I can't sit back any longer knowing the challenges you face. The sincerity in his tone transformed the atmosphere between them, filling it with possibility. As Maria processed his offer, Giovanni reflected on how this decision was not merely an act of charity. It was an invitation to forge a partnership rooted in mutual respect and understanding. In that moment, Giovanni resolved to take action, not just for Maria and Sofia, but for himself as well. He realized how profoundly these experiences were reshaping him, pulling him away from the shadows of his criminal empire toward the light of compassion and community. He envisioned organizing food drives or collaborating with local organizations dedicated to supporting single parents like Maria. The idea energized him. He could use his connections and resources not just to benefit himself, but to uplift those around him who needed help the most. I want you to feel supported, Giovanni said earnestly. You shouldn't have to navigate this alone. Tears welled in Maria's eyes once again, but this time they carried a sparkle of gratitude rather than despair. In her expression, Giovanni saw the transformation taking place, a flicker of hope ignited by the promise of assistance and understanding. As they delved deeper into potential avenues for support throughout their conversation, Giovanni felt lighter, as if shedding layers of old burdens while embracing new responsibilities. Each idea exchanged became a thread weaving their lives closer together, a tapestry rich with connection rather than isolation. With every word spoken between them, Giovanni recognized that true strength lay not merely in dominance, but also in vulnerability and compassion. He understood now that helping others could enrich his own life in ways he had never anticipated. As night fell outside their apartment window, Giovanni felt invigorated by this new purpose, a commitment not only to help Maria and Sofia thrive, but also to redefine what it meant to wield power in a way that nurtures instead of oppresses. This decision marked a pivotal shift in his life's trajectory, one that would forever change how he viewed himself and his role in the world around him. As the days passed after his heartfelt conversation with Maria, Giovanni Russo found himself consumed by a newfound sense of purpose. The weight of their struggles weighed heavily on his mind, and he couldn't shake the image of Sofia's thin frame and Maria's weary eyes. He knew he had to take action, but he also felt that revealing his identity could change the dynamic between them in ways he wasn't ready for. With this in mind, Giovanni devised a plan to help them without exposing himself as their benefactor. He wanted to provide groceries and support for their family anonymously, allowing them to maintain their dignity while receiving the assistance they desperately needed. One evening, while walking through a grocery store bustling with activity, Giovanni carefully selected items that he knew would be useful for Maria and Sofia. He chose wholesome foods: pasta, rice, canned vegetables, fresh fruits, and some treats for Sofia like chocolate bars and cookies. As he filled his cart, he imagined the joy on Sofia's face as she discovered these little treasures. The thought warmed his heart. Giovanni also picked up essentials, toiletries and household items that Maria would surely appreciate but might not always be able to afford. With each item added to his cart, he felt a mix of excitement and determination. This was an opportunity to make a tangible difference in their lives. After paying for the groceries, Giovanni carefully loaded everything into the back of his luxurious car. He wanted to make sure no one recognized him during this mission of kindness, so he donned a cap and sunglasses before driving toward Maria's neighborhood. Once he arrived at their modest apartment building, he parked a few blocks away to avoid drawing attention to himself. He then arranged the bags so they were easy to carry and set out on foot toward their home. As he walked through the familiar streets where Maria and Sofia lived, a sense of anticipation bubbled within him. He imagined how they would react upon discovering the surprise that awaited them. Reaching the entrance of the apartment building, Giovanni took a deep breath and steeled himself for what he was about to do. He felt an exhilaration mixed with nervousness as he climbed the stairs leading to their apartment on the second floor. He wanted this gesture to be remembered as a gift rather than an obligation. When Giovanni finally reached apartment 2B, he quietly placed the bags down just outside their door and knocked gently before retreating to a safe distance where he could observe without being seen. His heart raced as he stood there waiting. It felt like an eternity before Maria opened the door. She appeared hesitant at first, scanning the hallway as if expecting someone else. Her eyes widened when she noticed the bags sitting on her doorstep. Giovanni could see her expression shift from confusion to surprise as she knelt down to examine what had been left for her. Who could have done this?" she murmured aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. Giovanni felt a wave of satisfaction wash over him as he watched her disbelief transform into joy. As she began pulling items from the bags, her smile grew wider with each new discovery. "Oh my goodness, food and toiletries!" she gasped as she pulled out a box of chocolate cookies meant for Sophia. "This is incredible." Giovanni's heart swelled with fulfillment as he remained hidden in the shadows, feeling grateful that he had been able to bring even a small glimpse of happiness into their lives without compromising their pride or dignity. Just then, Sophia came rushing into view with her usual enthusiasm and curiosity. "What is it, Mama?" she asked excitedly, peering around her mother's side. Maria knelt down and shared the contents of the bags with Sophia, who let out an ecstatic squeal upon seeing the treats hidden within. "Look at all this food!" she exclaimed, clapping her hands together in delight. In that moment of pure joy radiating from Maria and Sophia, Giovanni understood that his decision was not merely about providing groceries. It was about nurturing hope and fostering connection in their lives. As he made his way back to his car under the cover of darkness, Giovanni felt lighter than ever before. This act of kindness marked not just a new beginning for Maria and Sophia, but also for himself, an awakening that led him away from darkness toward brighter paths filled with compassion and purpose. He knew now that helping others would become an integral part of who he was. A mafia boss, transformed into an unexpected ally who would actively participate in creating change rather than simply observing from afar. With this commitment firmly rooted in his heart, Giovanni headed home with renewed determination to continue supporting Maria and Sophia in secret until they were strong enough to seek help openly. As weeks turned into months, the bond between Giovanni Russo and Maria deepened, gradually transforming their employer-employee relationship into one built on trust and mutual respect. Giovanni's anonymous support had provided a safety net for Maria and Sophia, allowing them to breathe a little easier amidst their daily struggles. But it was through small, shared moments that the real connection began to flourish. Maria would come to work with a smile that seemed brighter each day. The knowledge that there were groceries already stocked in their kitchen offered her a sense of relief, granting her the freedom to focus more on her duties rather than worrying about how to feed her daughter. Giovanni noticed this change and felt a growing sense of pride every time he saw Maria's demeanor shift toward optimism. In return, Maria's diligence and care in his home became even more evident. She approached her work with renewed energy, often going the extra mile to ensure everything was immaculate, a reflection of her gratitude for the help they received. Giovanni began to pay closer attention to not just the work she did, but also the person she was. The laughter in her voice when she talked about Sophia's latest artistic endeavors, or her determination to provide a better life for them both. One evening, after finishing his usual round of meetings, Giovanni came home later than expected. He was exhausted, but felt an unusual pull toward the kitchen, where he found Maria preparing dinner for him, his favorite pasta dish. It was a dish they had shared before on special occasions, and he hadn't expected such a gesture after a long day. "Maria," Giovanni said softly, "you didn't have to do this." She turned around from the stove with a warm smile on her face. "I wanted to show my appreciation," she replied simply, "and I thought you might enjoy having a home-cooked meal once in a while." Giovanni was taken aback by her thoughtfulness and realized this was an opportunity not only for him, but also for Maria and Sophia. They could share meals together as friends, rather than strictly as employer and employee. "Shall we eat together?" he suggested, feeling nervous yet hopeful at the same time. "I'd love that," Maria replied, her eyes lighting up at the idea. As they set up the table together, Giovanni felt anticipation bubbling within him. Sharing this meal wasn't merely about food. It symbolized trust and friendship blossoming between them. Once seated at the table under soft lights illuminating their gathering, they began telling stories over pasta and garlic bread, the kind of banter that broke down barriers and truly connected them as people rather than roles. With each shared laugh and anecdote, Giovanni learned more about Maria's life outside of work. Her dreams for Sofia's future filled with art and creativity made her face light up like nothing else ever could. Likewise, he shared snippets from his own life as well, moments that softened his tough exterior and revealed layers of vulnerability that he had hidden beneath power for so long. As these mealtime interactions continued over subsequent weeks, evenings filled with food became an expected tradition. Sometimes Sofia would join them too. She would shyly enter with a bright smile or silly artwork she'd made that day, her laughter turning their dinners into joyful celebrations of life despite challenges. The walls of mistrust slowly crumbled as the three bonded over simple joys. A shared meal transformed into an embrace of connection, founded not only on kindness, but also understanding each other's struggles. They experienced tender moments where tears were exchanged alongside hearty laughter, a reminder that it was okay not to be perfect in order to find happiness. Giovanni began seeing Maria not just as an employee who kept his household running smoothly, but rather as part of his extended family, a relationship rooted in authenticity born from empathy rather than obligation or status. He admired her determination to provide for Sofia even amidst hardship. It inspired him daily. In turn, Maria found solace in Giovanni's willingness to open up his world beyond business dealings. It reassured her during moments filled with doubt or anxiety about their circumstances. Through these evenings spent together sharing meals filled with warmth and genuine conversations of life experiences, Giovanni realized they were building something meaningful beyond groceries or assistance. It was trust cultivated through compassion, creating joyful memories that bridged two very different worlds united by love and understanding along their journey toward transformation together. As Giovanni Russo and Maria continued to share meals and moments together, both began to experience profound changes in their perspectives. Giovanni was learning what it meant to show compassion beyond his usual business dealings, while Maria was slowly realizing that accepting help did not equate to weakness, but rather strength. One evening, as they finished dinner, Giovanni noticed a flicker of hesitation in Maria's eyes when he suggested they plan a small outing for Sofia. "We could take her to the art gallery this weekend," he proposed, envisioning the joy it would bring to both mother and daughter. It would be good for her to see different forms of creativity. Maria's smile faltered slightly as she replied, "That sounds lovely, but I wouldn't want to impose. We don't want to take advantage of your generosity." Giovanni felt a pang of frustration at her reluctance. "Maria, it's not imposing. I genuinely want to do this for Sofia," he said earnestly. He understood that she had grown accustomed to self-reliance, but he also recognized that this mindset was holding her back from experiencing joy and acceptance of support. "Let me help you create beautiful memories with her," Giovanni continued. "You deserve these moments just as much as she does." Maria hesitated for a moment longer before nodding slowly, her own realizations dawning on her. She had spent so much time focused on surviving that she often forgot what it felt like to enjoy life, to smile without the weight of worry pressing down on her shoulders. As the weekend approached, they planned the outing meticulously together, exchanging ideas about what Sofia might enjoy most. The anticipation built excitement within Maria, who started getting lost in thoughts about the day ahead. For the first time in a long while, she felt herself looking forward to something beyond their daily struggles. On the day of the outing, Maria and Giovanni arrived at the art gallery with Sofia bubbling with enthusiasm. As they walked through the colorful exhibits filled with creativity and inspiration, Maria watched Sofia's eyes shine brighter than ever before, each brushstroke igniting a spark of imagination within her. Giovanni took note of how freely Maria laughed alongside them as they marveled at various pieces. It was a sound that warmed his heart. They took pictures that day and shared joy over colorful paintings and sculptures, creating memories that Maria had often wished for, but hadn't believed were possible. Later that evening, as they sat down for dinner once more, Maria spoke up. "Thank you for today," she said warmly, lifting her gaze from her plate. "It meant so much more than I can express." Giovanni smiled back at her sincerity. In these simple words lay an acknowledgement of their growing friendship and understanding. He realized then how much he had gained from this experience, not just through his acts of kindness, but also through witnessing Maria's evolution as she began embracing help rather than viewing it as a burden. In turn, while Maria learned about accepting support graciously from someone like Giovanni, a man who once represented power and control, she also discovered a sense of freedom through vulnerability. It allowed her to open up further not only in their relationship but also within herself. Each shared meal created a deeper connection rooted in trust. With every joyful moment spent together, from laughter-filled dinners to outings enriched by creativity, Giovanni recognized how intertwined their lives had become. They were no longer bound simply by employer and employee labels. Instead, they were building a family-like bond based on respect and love, born from understanding one another's struggles. This mutual growth transformed both characters. Giovanni discovered that true strength could come from empathy and compassion, while helping others rise above their circumstances. Simultaneously, Maria learned that allowing others into her life could lead not just to relief, but also genuine happiness. As their paths continued intertwining through moments big and small alike, their journey toward transformation strengthened their resolve to face life's challenges together rather than alone. Together they embraced not only hope but also possibility, the heartwarming realization that sometimes change begins simply by being willing to trust one another amidst uncertainty. As the story of Giovanni Russo and Maria unfolded, it became clear that one simple act of kindness can lead to profound changes in lives, both those offering help and those receiving it. Over time, their journey together transcended the barriers of social status and began to weave their vastly different backgrounds into a tapestry rich with understanding, empathy, and shared experiences. The bond they formed wasn't just about the groceries or the meals shared at the table, but rather the emotional support and respect they cultivated along the way. Giovanni's once solitary life as a mafia boss morphed into something more meaningful as he began investing in their lives rather than merely overseeing them. No longer just a figure of power, he transformed into a confidant who understood their struggles at both personal and systemic levels. Maria felt this shift deeply. She found herself opening up in ways she never thought possible. Her once calculated stoicism loosened like the tightening grip on a held breath. She realized that by allowing herself to accept help from Giovanni, she not only opened her heart to support, but also created space for joy. Moments spent laughing with Sofia or painting together that had seemed impossible before. Their small outings turned into cherished traditions, filled with memories they would revisit for years to come. Whether they were visiting art galleries or simply enjoying an afternoon picnic at the park, each moment built trust between them, allowing Maria to feel valued beyond her role as a maid. Giovanni's genuine care unveiled new layers of Maria's spirit. Her hopes for Sophia's future spread like blossoming flowers where once there was only survival. One day, after attending an art festival where Sophia showcased her vibrant artwork alongside other child artists, Giovanni was struck by how alive Maria looked in that moment. Watching her support her daughter and experience pride sparked something within him, a realization illuminating his path forward. It wasn't enough to simply help. He desired to become an active participant in uplifting the community around him. Inspired by Sophia's creativity and resilience, Giovanni contemplated ways he could impact more lives. He recognized how his resources could extend beyond just Maria and her daughter. There were many families struggling like theirs who deserved support, offered without stigma or judgment. Slowly, he began connecting with local charities and outreach programs aimed at providing resources for low-income families. Meanwhile, Maria learned to embrace this season of life not just as one based on hardship, but also gratitude. A realization that kindness often comes wrapped in unexpected generosity from others. She became empowered to share her story with other mothers facing similar struggles. Vulnerability turned out to be a source of strength instead of shame. The transformation in both characters became evident during moments filled with gentle laughter and understanding that stretched far beyond typical employer-employee interactions. They showed each other what it meant to lean on someone else, what it meant to trust again after worlds had crashed down around them. As days turned into months, their families grew closer despite their differing experiences shaped by connection rather than division. The foundation they built flourished through acts of kindness exchanged freely among them, a heartwarming reminder that even amidst chaos can arise hope, a beacon guiding them toward brighter tomorrows. Reflecting on everything they had navigated together thus far, Giovanni understood how acts of compassion ignited bonds stronger than any label society might impose on them. In Maria's smile, he saw the beauty of resilience, the power embedded within simply being present for one another through challenges. In this remarkable journey forged from seemingly simple beginnings, sharing groceries transformed into sharing life itself, they discovered that friendship knows no bounds when driven by love and understanding. Their story amplified the truth that by allowing oneself to experience kindness fully, both giving and receiving, it not only changes lives, but has the power to heal hearts across divides built over time. In closing this chapter, both Giovanni and Maria embraced new beginnings hand in hand, a reminder that change births possibility when rooted in compassion between those willing to step outside their comforts for greater purposes than themselves alone.